Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served.
This escalated fast. 1 minute, Kash Patel is sitting calmly under oath, projecting confidence, brushing off concerns, and the next minute you've got career FBI agents, senators from both parties, and whistleblowers all basically saying, no, that's not what happened. And once you start lining up what Patel said publicly against what's now being alleged in lawsuits, internal accounts, and Senate statements, the picture gets messy. Very messy. Let's start with something most people overlook. This isn't just about one controversial hearing answer or a single staffing decision. This is about trust.
Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page were having an extramarital affair, and at one point, Ms. Page texted Mr. Strzok, quote, "Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right?" And Mr. Strzok replied, "No, he won't. We will stop it," end quote. Ms. Page resigned from the FBI. Mr. Strzok was fired. They promptly sued the federal government and the FBI and Justice Department for releasing their emails, which revealed all of it.
The FBI is one of those institutions where credibility is the whole currency. Once agents believe leadership decisions are political or worse, retaliatory, that trust collapses, and that's exactly why the reaction from inside the Bureau matters so much here.
Speaking to line agents about an ongoing criminal investigation. And Stephen, what more do we know about the election materials that the FBI seized in this raid?
Well, we still haven't seen the affidavit that was submitted by the FBI to a magistrate judge who signed it, indicating that there was probable cause that a crime has been committed. We still don't know exactly what backs up the search warrant.
Recently, the FBI Agents Association, which represents roughly 14,000 agents and claims to speak for the overwhelming majority of active duty personnel, issued a rare and unusually blunt public statement criticizing the direction of leadership decisions tied to Patel. Groups like that don't go public lightly. They tend to handle disputes quietly because public infighting undermines the institution. So when they step out into the open, it's usually because internal channels aren't working anymore. Now, here's where things get interesting. The controversy really centers on Patel's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Donald Trump promised to make us all safer. You have pushed out senior FBI agents with decades of knowledge and experience. In fact, this is the first time in FBI history that neither the director nor the deputy director have any experience with the FBI. You've shifted the agency's priorities primarily to pursuing Donald Trump's immigration enforcement agenda.
During his confirmation process, under oath, he was asked a series of direct questions about whether he knew of, participated in, or supported plans to remove FBI personnel connected to investigations involving Donald Trump, January 6th, or classified documents. Over and over, Patel insisted he had no knowledge of retaliatory plans and claimed he would not tolerate political retribution under his leadership.
FBI, under my 7-month leadership, we're failing this administration in this country. Why do we have 23,000 violent felons arrested this year alone? A double increase from that time last year. Why is it that we have seized 6,000 weapons? Why have we found 1,500 child predators and arrested them? Why have we have 300 human traffickers in jail? Why have we found and identified 4,700 children?
On its face, that sounds reassuring, but senators didn't just take his word for it. And according to statements later made on the Senate floor, particularly by Senator Dick Durbin, multiple whistleblowers from inside the FBI came forward with accounts that directly conflict with Patel's testimony. These weren't vague complaints. Durbin said they came from senior levels of the Bureau and included specific details about meetings, directives, and timing. Here's the part most people misunderstand. Allegations of lying to Congress aren't about a bad memory or fuzzy wording. The legal and political issue hinges on whether Patel knowingly made statements that contradicted actions he was allegedly already involved in.
There is mounting evidence that these retaliatory firings were the result of direction from the White House. There have been instances in the past history of the Bureau of political interference and political direction from the director's office, but not the kind of institutional interference that we're seeing from the White House.
According to whistleblower accounts cited by senators, Patel was not only aware of plans to remove certain officials, but was actively involved in discussions about who should be pushed out and why before his confirmation hearing even took place. If that's true, the timeline alone is explosive, because during that hearing, Patel repeatedly told senators he didn't know of any such plans and had not participated in retaliatory decision-making. That contradiction is why Senator Durbin formally requested that the Justice Department's Inspector General investigate whether Patel's testimony constituted perjury, not political spin, not miscommunication, perjury.
Right now, I'm going to ask you, has anyone from the White House contacted you about personnel decisions?
I completely disagree with your entire premise that I have lied or am misleading the FBI. If I were, the results that I announced today by the men and women of the FBI and the historic records we are doing to keep this country safe would not be possible. The men and women of the FBI are responding to our leadership and this administration's priorities.
And it doesn't stop there. Several former FBI officials, Brian Driscoll, Stephen Jensen, and Spencer Evans, have now filed a civil lawsuit alleging wrongful termination. Their complaint claims they were forced out not for misconduct or performance issues, but because of their roles in sensitive investigations connected to Trump. Lawsuits like this matter because they move the dispute out of the political arena and into a venue where sworn declarations, documents, and discovery come into play. According to the lawsuit, senior officials were summoned to meetings in late January and told in no uncertain terms that they needed to resign. No disciplinary findings, no performance reviews, just pressure. And the alleged reason, according to the complaint, was political, perceived disloyalty or involvement in cases that Trump allies didn't like. Here's why that matters. Federal law and long-standing DOJ policy are explicit about protecting career law enforcement officers from political retaliation. You can't fire agents simply because they worked on lawful investigations that made powerful people uncomfortable. If you do, that's not just bad leadership. It potentially crosses into illegality. Now, here's the twist. According to reporting and the lawsuit's claims, Patel allegedly acknowledged in private conversations that some of these firings might have violated internal FBI protocols. If that allegation holds up, it creates a stark contrast with what he told senators under oath, where he denied knowledge, involvement, or approval of such actions. That gap between private acknowledgement and public denial is what legal analysts are zeroing in on. Take Benjamin Witz, editor-in-chief of Lawfare. He didn't accuse Patel outright of criminal conduct, but he was blunt in his assessment that Patel's testimony didn't line up with the available facts, which highlighted inconsistencies in Patel's statements about loyalty tests, White House involvement, and the rationale behind personnel decisions. In legal commentary circles, that kind of critique is unusually direct. And then there's the questioning from Senator Adam Schiff, which is worth pausing on because it shows how these contradictions surfaced in real time. Schiff asked Patel whether any FBI employees were disciplined or fired for working on Trump-related investigations or January 6th cases. Patel initially said no, but when Schiff reframed a question asking whether anyone was removed solely because of their case assignments, Patel's answer shifted. That distinction might sound subtle, but it matters. It suggests that case assignments may have played at least some role which directly undercuts the original denial. From the reactions I've seen, that exchange raised eyebrows even among people who weren't paying close attention before, because it sounded less like clarity and more like backpedaling. Then there's the issue of outside political influence. Whistleblower accounts cited by senators alleged that Patel discussed personnel decisions with White House officials during the Trump administration, including Stephen Miller. Under oath, Patel said he did not recall receiving direction from the White House regarding firings. If an inspector general investigation finds corroborating evidence that such discussions did occur, that opens up an entirely new set of questions, not just about Patel, but about who else may have been involved. And this is where the Trump connection becomes unavoidable. Patel has long been viewed as one of Trump's most loyal allies in national security circles. Supporters see him as someone willing to challenge what they view as a politicized bureaucracy. Critics see him as someone willing to politicize it further. If investigations conclude that retaliatory firings were carried out at the direction of or in coordination with Trump-era officials, the legal and political implications expand rapidly. Now, at another layer, Patel was also questioned about his relationship with far-right podcasters Stu Peters. Under oath, Patel claimed he didn't really know Peters, but his own Senate disclosure forms reportedly list multiple appearances on Peters' show. Peters himself publicly responded, saying they had exchanged contact information and communicated directly. That may sound minor compared to the firing allegations, but it feeds a broader narrative, a pattern of statements that don't quite hold up when checked. The same thing came up regarding Patel's involvement with the so-called January 6th choir recording. Publicly, Patel had taken credit for producing it and described participants as political prisoners. Under oath, he claimed he wasn't aware that some participants had been convicted of violent offenses. Senators pointed out that those details were widely known at the time. Again, the issue isn't ideology, it's credibility. And then there's the reporting from outlets like the New York Times, which described efforts to review sensitive FBI files in search of material related to Trump's perceived enemies. According to those reports, agents were directed to look for information that could be used against political opponents or critics. Patel has denied weaponizing the Bureau, but the allegations suggest a very different intent. This is where the tension really comes from. If even part of these claims are substantiated, it suggests a deliberate strategy to reshape federal law enforcement around personal loyalty rather than institutional norms. Supporters might argue that this is about accountability and reform. Critics argue it looks more like using the machinery of the state to settle political scores. Whistleblowers say they came forward because they believe the situation posed a serious threat to the integrity of the Bureau. That's not a small claim. Career officials don't risk their livelihoods lightly. And now the Inspector General is tasked with sorting through testimony, documents, and timelines to determine whether Patel's sworn statements align with reality. If the Inspector General finds evidence of intentional falsehoods, the next step would typically be a criminal referral to the Justice Department. That puts enormous pressure on Attorney General Pam Bondi, who would then have to decide whether to pursue charges. Either choice carries political consequences. Prosecuting Patel would validate claims that the confirmation process was compromised. Declining to act would fuel accusations of favoritism and double standards. In my view, that's why this story isn't going away. It's not just about Kash Patel as an individual. It's about whether the rules apply evenly when power is involved. It's about whether sworn testimony still means something. And it's about whether federal law enforcement can remain insulated from personal vendettas. Right now, we're watching multiple processes unfold at once: a civil lawsuit, an inspector general investigation, ongoing Senate scrutiny, and intense public debate. Every new document, every whistleblower account, every contradictory statement adds pressure, and pressure historically is what forces clarity. This story is still developing. Findings haven't been released, conclusions haven't been reached, but the direction is unmistakable. The questions are getting sharper, the evidence more detailed, and the stakes higher. Whether Patel ultimately faces consequences or not, the damage to trust is already real, and rebuilding that is far harder than breaking it. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. I appreciate you.